If you're looking for a cruising couples boat that's easy to operate, has a lot of simplistic systems, no complicated features that make it difficult to own and operate, have I got a boat to show you. It's the 38E from Helmsman Trawlers. This could be the ideal owner-operator's boat. Let's take a look as I do a full performance evaluation. All clear?
All clear.
One thing I'm really impressed with Helmsman Trawlers is just how easy they are to maneuver. I just give it a little hit forward with the rudder in neutral, and momentum seems to really do the trick. It's always such a pleasure. And then I just give it a couple of little hits with the thrusters here and there, but little shot of forward, let it come ahead on its own momentum. And because it's got such a big rudder and a big propeller, it's also so maneuverable if you try doing the back and fill thing. So once I get clear in the stern, I'll bring that rudder hard over to port. Now notice when I put it in reverse, I've got that stern coming over nicely, and I don't even need the thruster. And once I'm lined up in the fairway here, back to midships, and ease ourselves out of here. Such an easy, gentle boat to handle. It really is an owner-operator's dream boat. Helmsman opted to have the station over on the starboard side, and there are several benefits for doing that design. One is we've got better visibility all around, especially out the back when we're backing into a slip. Number two, opening side door right alongside, we've got better communication with the line handlers. Number three, we've got better visibility of the whole starboard side when we're coming into a slip. And number four, we've got better access down below to the main cabin. So many of these design features are what sets Helmsman Trawlers apart from the competition. Seat has a flip-down bolster, flip armrest. It's from Pomponette. There's a flip-down footrest just underneath the solid wood steering wheel. Over to the port-hand side, there's chart storage. Up above, 2 fuel gauges, electrical switches for your lights and wiper, pump switches, and we've also got easy access to get into this area for wiring, doing some work on the windshield wiper motors, or even mounting speakers. Below, 2 doors open up to our main electrical panel. We've got 12 volt on one side, 120 volt on the other. Battery switches are across the top, our master inverter control, and of course, our screen giving us all of our readouts of our electrical system and the inverter system. Forward visibility is through 3 windshields. Notice that they're canted forward slightly to reduce glare, and the center window opens to provide even more ventilation. The 9-inch bra overhead has multiple design features. It knocks down the glare a little bit more, and it allows us to keep that window open if there happens to be a little bit of rain coming down. The bow is protected by 31-inch high rails. There's an anchor roller supporting a 55-pound Rockna anchor. That's running through chain, Lumar windlass, and then there's a big strong bit just behind. Anchor locker is over to the starboard side. Notice how the cockpit deck is channeled so that all the water drains right overboard through the scuppers, and we've got heavy-duty hawse cleats to the stern and the sides. Now, the upper deck is as much a social area as it is a functional area. The flying bridge helm is center mounted. There's a 12-inch display right in the center and analog displays over to the left-hand side, electrical switches, and then your bow and stern thruster. Companion seat is just over to the right-hand side, leaving us room for the settee over to the port-hand side. Now, just in the back, we've got an open boat deck that can allow us to have a tender on board. Notice that the rail can become disconnected on the top so that we can bring the tender over to the stern, or we can launch it over to the port hand side. With the crane, this one's got a 650-pound lift capacity. Now this is also an ideal boat for using on the Great Loop because it's got such a low profile. Notice that this boat has a collapsible arch, so we can lower our overhead clearance from 18 feet down to 13 feet. This boat also has a mast option. If we collapse the mast, we can bring the overhead clearance down to 12 feet. Everything is so easily accessible. There are no complicated systems, and that's certainly evident as I look around this engine room. The access is certainly easy enough. This ladder is removable, so now we have better access around the engine. That engine being the Cummins 6.7 QSB 250 horsepower. Now this is the base engine. We can go up to 550 horsepower. The filters, the Raycor filters, are right over to the starboard side, easily accessible. The manifold right alongside. As I look at the deck platings, I don't have to remove the deck platings to get access underneath. There are little cutouts so I can just reach right through and get to what I need to. It's very cleverly done, but more to the point is if we're underway, we've got this boat full of people, and I need to get into the engine room. Do I really want to lift up this hatch and expose all this noise to everybody on board and create what is in effect a big hole in the middle of the race pilot house? Not necessarily, but there's a design feature that avoids all of that. And if you just look at the dayhead right alongside, there's a door just at the forward end of the dayhead, and now I have easy access to the engine room. And this is such a great design feature because now I don't have the noise going all through the boat. I don't have this hole in the center of the raised pilot house. I can walk from the salon all the way to the master stateroom because the hatch is closed, and it just makes a much more convenient design feature. In the deck of the salon, there's another hatch which gives us access to some more mechanical components. Because the systems are kept so simplistic on this boat, as you look around this compartment, there's just so much additional space. So not only do we have all of the mechanical components here, we've also got plenty of room for storage, which makes this ideal for, hey, a generator, freezer, kayaks, fold-up bikes, wife, kids, cat, dog, mother-in-law, you name it. Here we've got 5 high-capacity AGM batteries. Standard is 2 batteries. These are being charged by the engine running, by the inverter system, the charger on that, and there are also optional solar panels on the roof. Standard is no solar panels, option is 2. This customer wanted to go with 3, so he's really created a scenario here where he needs no generator, which would be a 6 kilowatt right in the back in between the 2 tanks. So for Northwest cruising, these batteries maintain the charge, keep this whole boat operating. We've got a propane stove, so there really is very minimal need for electricity on this boat. Now, if you went for, say, a Florida boat or something along the southern East Coast or the Southern California coast, now you want air conditioning going all the time, it might tap this system a little bit more. Now you're going to want the generator, and that goes right back there, and the boat is pre-rigged for it. Notice there's an inspection port right in the center deck panel that lets us see the shaft seal. I like that. For tankage, again, easily accessible. Fuel tanks to either side of me, and at the stern there are 2 water tanks. And then there's an optional water maker, 15 gallon per hour, 360 gallon per day. Before I close this hatch off, there's a couple of things I'm noticing. First of all, it's supported by 2 gas support struts, so it's not hard to open at all, but more importantly, look at how thick it is. There's a lot of strength going on here, plus noise reduction. 3 inches thick, and this leads us into just how well built this boat is. Let me show you some other examples. The floor structure is supported on extruded aluminum joists in this really solid material. The noise attenuation comes from the multi-density sound-reducing foam, and on top of that, now you've got the deck material, which is marine-grade plywood, rubber cork, another layer of marine-grade plywood, and then a teak and holly deck. What's most notable about this deck structure is that it's real wood. It's not thin laminate, so it can be refinished over and over again as the decades go by. Here are 2 cutouts from the hull. This is a piece that was actually cut out for the stern thruster. It's a 1/2 inch thick. And here's one that was cut out for the transducer in the hull, 3/4 inch thick. So this is such a strongly built boat. More to the point though, there's protection under the running gear. The keel comes back and then forms protection underneath the propeller and the rudder. So we've got protection if we happen to run this boat aground. It's not a problem. The ladsride offers still more storage, and it's absolutely cavernous here. And in addition, we've got some mechanical components. Of course, the steering gear. I've got the rudder right behind me along with the autopilot, hydraulic steering. There's an emergency steering tiller over to the starboard side, and it gets dedicated storage. There are isolation transformers that are typically options on other boats. With Helmsman, they're standard. And then over to the port hand side, 17-gallon hot water heater. When you start the engine, you can make sure you've got cooling water coming out by looking at a little telltale out the starboard side, just alongside the helm. Now let's take a look at her performance. The Helmsman Trawlers 3080 was powered by a single 250 horsepower Cummins 6.7-liter engine, turning a 24 by 26 four-bladed prop. This combination produced a top speed of 10 knots. Of course, top speed on any boat is always the most inefficient, and that's certainly true in the trawler world. But there are basically three choices on what to do with the speed after that. You could go to the engine manufacturer's recommended 80% load, and that produced a speed of 9.7 knots, 10.4 gallons per hour, and a range of 334 nautical miles. Not much better than top speed. But if we do the math based on her waterline length, we come up with a hull speed of 7.9 knots, and that's where her sweet spot is. At that speed, the 3.5 gallon per hour fuel consumption worked out to a range of 804.7 nautical miles, while still holding back a 10% reserve of the boat's 400-gallon total fuel capacity. After that, reducing the throttle another 250 RPM adds about 270 nautical miles to the range. Further reductions are probably going to be too slow to realize any benefit in range. What's also notable, though, is how quiet she is. We talked about how the construction design reduces noise, but now we're hearing it. At top speed, the engine noise topped out at 81.8 decibels, and at hull speed, it was only 70.1. The thing about being on a trawler is that there's not much to do while you're underway. This is a set it and forget it kind of a boat. Set the autopilot and just go. Now you sit back, relax, and monitor everything. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And typically when you're monitoring something on these boats, nothing goes wrong because there are such simple systems. We don't have any real sea conditions on this lake to speak of, so it's not like I can speak about how this boat handles ocean capabilities. But I've been on Helmsman trawlers before in snotty conditions, and it handled them well, and I have no reason to think that this one will handle any differently. I like that there's a flybridge on this boat because as a captain, having an elevated vantage point is always nice, especially when you're running through areas where there's crab pots and fish pots all over the place and it's just polluted. You really got to watch out for those. Those are easier to see when you're at an elevated platform, plus you get such great visibility. I also like that we don't have to worry about enclosing this thing in isinglass, which just destroys the looks of every boat in my opinion. But if we do get into inclement weather, we just go down below and we're in an enclosed environment. Perfect. It's obviously a great cruising boat and certainly easy enough to handle, but it's also a fun boat to be on. But that's another video. Be sure to look for it. For now, this is my full sea trial and performance evaluation of the 3080 from Helmsman Trawlers. For Ocean Life Network, I'm Captain Steve. We'll see you on the water.